Welcome back to Finance Friday. It's another special edition of Money Girl where I answer your burning money questions. Today's topic is a good one. It comes from Sandy from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, who says, I'm 31, max out a Roth IRA, have a 6-month emergency fund, and no debt. I have about $1,000 left each month, and I want to invest it in diversified ETFs in a brokerage account. I'm looking for at least a 7% return over the next 10 years, which would allow me to pay cash for a house. I don't want to pay interest to a lender when I can get the interest instead. I plan to live in the house and flip it, claiming the capital gains tax exclusion after 5 years. But I'm in no rush if the housing market is down in 10 years. What do you think? Should I pay cash or get a mortgage for a home? I love the podcast and have listened to all of them. Thank you for your kind words and your great question, Sandy. I love that your finances are so great for being so young. Today, I'll review the pros and cons of getting a mortgage to buy a home sooner or waiting to pay cash, all cash, later. While there isn't a right or wrong answer, there is much to consider when making such a big financial decision. So stay with me. I really appreciate you downloading episode 929 of the Money Girl podcast. I'm your host, Laura Adams. I'm an award-winning author, a money speaker, spokesperson, and founder of The Money Stack. That's my Substack newsletter. You can subscribe for free or become a paid member and get access to live educational events. You can learn more and connect with me and subscribe to The Money Stack at lauradadams.com. And you can also send in a money question by sending me an email from the website, lauradadams.com, or you can call. You can record a brief question or comment by calling 302-364-0308. I look forward to hearing from you and maybe featuring your question in another Finance Friday show. So let's talk about the benefits of paying cash for a home. In a perfect world, paying cash for a home would be easy and nobody would have to pay interest to a mortgage lender. So if you can pay cash for a home, if you're that fortunate, here are 5 benefits of owning a home outright from the start. Number 1 is obviously you have no mortgage payments. As Sandy mentioned, not paying interest to a lender means you save a lot of money. Mortgage rates are currently near just under 7%. And depending on how long you own a home, avoiding mortgage interest could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, that's obviously a huge benefit. Number 2 is you have fewer closing costs. Owning a home outright from the start means avoiding many mortgage-related closing expenses, like an origination fee that you have to pay to the lender, getting an appraisal, maybe paying private mortgage insurance if your down payment is less than 20%, and more, just depending on your situation and what's customary where you live. Number 3, you may have a stronger negotiating position. A seller might prefer to accept a lower cash offer than a higher one that's contingent upon getting mortgage approval. That would eliminate any risk of the financing falling through if the seller is worried about that. However, your negotiating strength certainly depends on the local housing market and the seller's situation. Number 4, you can close a home faster. Paying cash for a house means you could close faster compared to a deal that's contingent on getting a mortgage. You won't have to wait for loan underwriting or a home inspection, appraisal, survey, or any service that's typically required by a lender. You could close maybe within days instead of several weeks at a minimum. But note that even if you buy a home with cash, it's still wise to have various inspections to ensure the property doesn't have any invisible but needed repairs that could sneak up on you later on. Number 5, you never have foreclosure risk. When you don't owe a lender for your home, you don't have to worry about missing mortgage payments if you experience financial hardship, like losing your job or business income. However, if you don't pay vendors that work on your home or your taxes, you could still lose your home through an unpaid lien. All right, so let's talk about the downsides of paying cash for a home. Even if you can afford to pay cash for a home, there are downsides to consider. We'll go through 4 of them. Number one, you may miss appreciation. So Sandy mentioned needing to wait 10 years before her investments would grow enough at a 7% return to afford a home. During that time, I assume she'd have to pay rent and wouldn't benefit from any potential appreciation in the real estate market. Sandy said she was in no rush and implied that she might decide not to buy a home if the housing market is down. Sandy, remember that purchasing a home when prices are low is the perfect time to become a homeowner because you'll likely enjoy more appreciation over the long run. While homes appreciate an average of about 5% annually nationwide, there's short-term volatility in the housing market. So my point here is that waiting to buy a home means you could be missing out on some pretty nice potential appreciation in the housing market. Number two, you risk spending more money. If you or Sandy wait to buy a home until you can pay for it solely with cash, prices could be significantly higher than today. So that means the amount you save might not be enough to buy the home you want. Number three, you have less liquidity. If a large portion of your net worth is tied up in your home, that lack of diversification could be risky if the housing market plummets. Number four, you can't claim a significant tax deduction. If you itemize deductions on your tax return, homeowners can claim the interest paid on a mortgage up to a limit as a tax-deductible expense. Now, getting the tax deduction is certainly not a reason to buy a home or not a reason to get a mortgage, but it certainly is a benefit that you get when you have a mortgage that makes it less expensive. All right, so let's talk about the benefits of getting a mortgage for a home. Even if you can pay all cash for a home, it can make sense to keep more of your money and take out a mortgage instead. So here are 3 benefits of financing real estate. Number one, you can build equity sooner. When you buy a home, even with a mortgage, you'll likely enjoy appreciation as the housing market gets more valuable over time. That builds equity in the property so you can tap it or roll it into your next home purchase. Again, if you wait until you have all cash, you're foregoing that potential price appreciation. Number two, you can invest more. Instead of using more cash to buy a home, you can use a smaller amount for a down payment and the closing costs, and then invest the rest. That could give you a higher return than the after-tax interest rate you'd pay on a mortgage, but it's never guaranteed. Number three, you have more liquidity. When you keep more cash, you can boost your emergency fund, invest more, or reach other financial goals that are important to you. A mortgage can give you more flexibility and avoid being house rich and cash poor. Okay, and of course, there are downsides of getting a mortgage to buy a home. Number one is you pay interest. Of course, this is the biggest downside, is that a mortgage costs you. It increases your total cost of home ownership over the life of the loan. Monthly mortgage payments are typically a homeowner's largest expense. Number two, you pay more closing costs. As I mentioned, taking out a mortgage adds various expenses to the amount you must pay for a home at the closing. Plus, you must pay private mortgage insurance if you make less than a 20% down payment. Number three, you have foreclosure risk. If you can't pay a mortgage, your lender could sell your home in foreclosure to satisfy the debt. That could leave you without a home and a severe black mark on your credit report. So, is it better to get a mortgage or to wait and pay cash for a home later on? Well, without knowing more about Sandy's financial situation, I would recommend saving enough for a 20% down payment plus closing costs and getting a mortgage for her first home. That would allow her to buy a home faster, enjoy home ownership, and benefit from potential appreciation a lot sooner. If Sandy waits 10 years to buy a property, prices could be significantly higher than they are today. However, if Sandy's primary goal is avoiding debt and she's comfortable waiting 10 years to buy a potentially higher-priced home, there's nothing wrong with that plan. Just be aware that you'll likely have most of your net worth tied up in one asset, which could plummet if the housing market declines. Sandy also mentioned wanting to live in a home and flip it, taking advantage of the capital gains tax exclusion after 5 years. Note that you only have to own and live in a home for 2 out of the 5 years before selling a home to claim the gains exclusion. So, Sandy, you can do that even if you only live in the home for 2 years. If fixing up and selling a home every few years is Sandy's goal, that tips the scales toward getting a mortgage instead of waiting to buy a home with cash. When you plan to own a home for a short period, leveraging financing makes more sense than paying cash. Plus, Sandy would need money to make needed repairs and put the property back on the market, assuming that's her intent. To sum up, no one can predict if you'd have a higher net worth after 30 years if you invested extra money instead of using it to pay for a home with all cash. You have to weigh the pros and cons based on your financial situation and goals. However, I do recommend remaining as diversified as possible to avoid the risk of any particular investment, such as real estate or even an individual stock, losing significant value. Having your money spread into various investments is a wise way to cut risk and earn more, even accounting for the cost of mortgage interest. If Sandy finances a home and decides to remain there long term instead of fixing it up and flipping it, she could always pay her mortgage off ahead of schedule. If she still has no other debt and regularly invests at least 10% of her income for retirement, paying off her mortgage early might be a sound financial plan. Sandy, thank you so much for the question. I hope this has given you some things to think about. Before we go, a quick reminder to subscribe to The Money Stack. That's my Substack newsletter when you visit lauradadams.com. I cover money tips, tools, news, challenges, and things I enjoy. You can subscribe for free or support the show and become a paid member with access to live educational events. That's all for now. I'll talk to you soon. Until then, here's to living a richer life. Money Girl is a quick and dirty tips podcast, and I want to thank our fantastic team. Steve Rickyberg audio engineers the show. Holly Hutchins is our new director of podcast. Morgan Christensen is our advertising operations specialist, and Nathaniel Hoops is our marketing contractor.